Sorry if you guys can hear the whirring in the background. I have the chimney cleaners over right now. But I do have time for a quick game against Chaz. This is still from the same series. So his first generation Pokemon, it goes Gengar, and then Ariados, and then Metagross, Rotom-Wash, Conkeldurr, and then presumably either Mega Metagross or Mega Diancie. I think he likes to rock Mega Diancie, which is why I'm actually going to go ahead and lead off with Scizor. Just regular old Scizor, you know, should be able to threaten it out. I do have a special defensive Scizor, so I'm prepared to take any hidden power fires. I should be able to take any stock Diamond Storms, Moonblast, any funky business he wants to go for and threaten him out with a ×4 super effective move. So the first turn of the game is in my favor, but it's only the first turn of the game. Getting off on the wrong foot doesn't necessarily guarantee you a game. So he's got Protect on his Diancie, which means he just gets to see that my Scizor has Bullet Punch, which is really not a big deal. It also gives him a free Magic Bouncer in case I do want to set up hazards, but I don't think I have hazards on this team. I just have hazard control, which is something I actually used to not opt for back in the day, believe it or not. Neither a hazard setter or hazard control. I've learned that you really need to go with one or the other. Otherwise, you're going to end up being behind against most common teams. So I decide to go into my Hydreigon as he decides to bring out his Rotom-Wash to take the Bullet Punch, goes for a Hydro Pump, and I end up going for a U-turn thinking that his Rotom-Wash does not necessarily want to take a Draco Meteor. So from here, I have to decide on a pivot for this. He's probably going to go for another Hydro Pump or a Discharge, which is why I decided to go into my own Rotom-Wash, banking on the fact that he might go for a, or not Discharge. We learn he has Discharge in a bit, but I thought Volt Switch was coming, so I figured I'd just go into my own Rotom-Wash. And it turns out he just goes for a Will-O-Wisp, which is absolutely fine by me because this is a rest set, and I'm not too worried about it. But I'm going to go ahead and Volt Switch out, get some more damage off, and decide to go back into my Hydreigon, as he's going to end up revealing Discharge right now. So I believe he does not have any sort of recovery. I think he has Hydro, Willow, Discharge, and Volt Switch. So he has two forms of Electric Stab, one for if he wants to stay in, and then one for if he doesn't. But unfortunately, it does paralyze my Choice Scarfer, which at this point I was just so infuriated by that. I was like, I'm just gonna sit in here and click Dark Pulse until I die. That's pretty much how it's gonna work out. So knowing that I am more than likely Choice Scarfed now at this point, or Choice locked into something, he decides to take the Instinct and go into his Conkeldurr here in order to take the Dark Pulse, which really doesn't do a lot at all. But he goes for a knockoff expecting my switch. The thing is, you must mistake me for a man that actually values my Hydreigon still. This thing can die. This is fine. But in some weird turn of events, I decide, you know what, this is a good pivot into Mega Gardevoir. Not necessarily for Hydreigon's sake because I want to keep it around, but because I do need an opportunity to shift things around. And a safe switch into Gardevoir to also get some free damage on something else is going to be, you know, a little bit more valuable than just letting Hydreigon die. So I can go for the Mega Evolution here. I believe he ended up going for a Drain Punch. Anything except for an Ice Punch was going to be... Well, he could have gone for Ice Punch here for some good middle ground if he had it, but I'm not sure if he does have it. Some Rock Stone Edge or Thunder Punch. Either or would have done some pretty serious damage to Gardevoir, but he went for he went for Drain Punch. Didn't end up doing a lot, so I Quad Resist it, and I'm able to knock him out, presumably through his Assault Vest. I think he does have Assault Vest, but that's just a Hyper Voice, and that just does massive amounts of damage. So brings out Ariados. Probably the only time I'm going to switch this thing out on this thing, because the most common Ariados build I see is actually a Focus Sash Ariados. So even if I want to stay in there and go for Psy Shock, he's going to live on one and probably knock me out with a Poison Jab, because Gardevoir's, you know, base defense isn't really that high. But I do end up knocking off the Focus Sash there, which is why I decided to go into my Scizor, both as a pivot for Poison Jab and in order to break a Sash, and also to defog away his Sticky Web when he switches out once he realizes his Focus Sash has been broken. He thinks I'm probably going to Bullet Punch right here. I'm actually just making it so his Ariados essentially did nothing. I think it really did nothing to Scizor, which is totally fine by me. I'm behind, but my Choice Scarfer now being paralyzed and at really low HP, I do not need any more speed control from him on my team, since I now do not have anything faster to take on the rest of his team, so I don't need the rest of my stuff to be slower, if that makes sense. But in a surprising turn of events, Hydreigon actually says, wait, teacher, I'm still good for something, and ends up surviving the Discharge and is actually able to knock out the Rotom-Wash with a critical hit. I'm not sure if it necessarily mattered. I don't know if he's physically or specially defensive, but You know what? Hey, I'll take it. So I'm still at 3 HP, and he actually decides to bring out Gengar and is going to reveal Hex in order to knock me out. I'm not sure if that's his only offensive move, but he just went ahead and used it to knock me out. So that's fine. Hydreigon actually got a kill, so that's cool by me. Not to say that Hydreigon was necessarily bad. It was probably my weakest link on the team, but not by a lot. Gen 5 was an interesting generation, and I could have had some other choices. I don't regret that one at all, but I decided to go out into Ariados right now. I end up going for a knockoff, potentially on the Gengar right there. And I get another crit, so I'm just able to scoop up the KO with another Bullet Punch, and that's the end of Ariados there. I think after this turn, he opts to go into Gengar again to try to burn me because he actually is a Will-O-Wisp Hex set. And I think what he wanted was synergy with Ariados in order to get Sticky Web and Toxic Spikes up, so that way Gengar could just have status on everything. The things that weren't affected by Poison, which would be Poison and Steel, would be burned by Gengar, and there's only one Pokemon that's really truly immune to that combination, and that would be Heatran, and there is no Fire Poison types yet, but that would be the other combination that would be immune to that strategy, which is pretty good coverage. It's an interesting one. So he did burn my Scizor on that one. I was not expecting the Will-O-Wisp. I don't know if I should have been. It's really not that common, or it wasn't at the time, and I don't really know if it still is. But I think on this turn, he reveals himself to me Life Orb Metagross on the turn that I end up going for a knockoff. Ordinarily, if he had not revealed his Mega Diancie, I probably would have just straight up switched out, and he would have just gotten the free hit on something. But because I know that his Mega was Diancie, I know his Metagross is not holding, or is more than likely not holding a Mega Stone. It could be, because, you know, item clause, and he could just choose which one to Mega. But it wasn't, so I just figured I'd go for a knockoff, and I do catch the Life Orb on that. So it's going to hurt a little bit less, and it's going to be a little bit easier to manage as I decide to bring in my Arcanine on this turn. Which means, now that I do still have my original speed, assuming he's not Jolly Metagross, I believe I'm Adamant Arcanine, I should reasonably be able to outspeed this thing. There's a couple of other things. It's a free KO for Arcanine. It doesn't happen too often, just because usually it ends up hitting resisted things and ends up dealing itself a lot of damage from Flare Blitz, Life Orb. And as we saw in the previous game, Rocky Helmet ended up being pretty rough for this thing. On this next turn, he's going to go into Diancie, and I figure I'm reasonably okay, but I didn't consider the possibility that he could be mixed, so he actually decides to show off Diamond Storm on this turn, which is a physical attack. Which, I mean, my Scizor would have reasonably been prepared for had I taken better care of it. But the big thing to note there is I actually did lose my Scizor before being able to knock this thing out, which is a huge, huge pain in my side. I'm going to have to rely on Rotom Wash being able to take one of these things, maybe two of them, and go for a Hydro Pump to knock it out. So as I end up doing that, it turns out that I do not have enough to knock it out, but it kind of surprises me because Diancie actually takes a defense hit when it Megas. So I'm kind of considering the idea that maybe he might be a little bit more invested in HP or defense and not have as much in speed or special attack as I had previously thought. Whatever the case may be, the best option I have next right now is to go into Mega Gardevoir, hope I can live a Diamond Storm, and just go for a Psyshock. But it turns out I'm actually faster than him. Mega Diancie naturally being faster than Mega Gardevoir immediately tells me that he's a bulky spread. Because I am a timid one, I'm not sure if he's modest and just a little bit fatter, or if he is, it wouldn't make sense for him to be timid. He'd probably be modest with a little bit of fatness there. But Gengar's going to be able to go for a Sludge Wave and knock me out stock. I just needed Diancie off the field. That was a big problem. Gardevoir did not have a good matchup against Gengar in the first place. But I do still have room for the last Pokemon in my roster, or second to last one, I think. But that's going to end up being my Hawlucha, which is going to be able to eat its Citrus Berry, take a Sludge Wave. Even if he wanted to go for Will-O-Wisp right there, I would have subbed up. It probably would have been knocked into Citrus Berry range. Could have Swords Dance on the next turn and then just knocked him out. Burn damage would not have taken me out from there, just because he was naturally faster. But I figured I would just go for the Acrobatics. I think I went for the Acrobatics on that one, expecting to knock him out, and me expecting him to knock me into that range or to just straight up burn me. My last turn definitely could have gone a little bit differently, now thinking about it, but I'm actually glad it didn't, so that works out okay. Anyways, that was the second round of the series, I believe, at least according to my Versus recorder. So if you guys enjoying this, you can go and drop a like, comment, subscribe, do your thing. You guys know how that works, and I'll hit you guys up with another video later on in the week. So bye for now. Goodbye. 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 Goodbye.